Mompreneur and Parentpreneur podcast. It's a podcast where parents who are entrepreneurs who come here to share their journey, their tips, their suggestions for the fellow entrepreneurs who are parents who are going through the same journey. So this week we have an awesome guest, a creative content header, and a famous member in LinkedIn, Alex Sheridan. Alex, welcome.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So to the people who don't know Alex, so Alex is a great content creator on LinkedIn, and he started this idea of creating video content and telling the stories through the video content. And he is the founder of Impax, and through his organization, he's helping the startups, the founders, the people around the world to tell their story to grow their business through the video content. So I'm so excited to have you here, Alex.
Yeah, that's a perfect introduction. You nailed that. That's exactly what I do.
Oh,
I
awesome. Do
appreciate
you
it.
want to add anything else?
No, you're good. You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
So most of people don't know that Alex, as part of amazing content creator he's also a father of two beautiful girls.
Thank you. Yes, I am.
Yes. So today we are going to share his journey and his tips to the fellow entrepreneurs and to the fellow people around the world on how to ace the game of both parenthood and entrepreneurship. So, Alex, tell us a little bit about how did you actually get this idea of creating the video content?
Well, it started when, for a long time, I had this kind of this itch where I wanted to start this business. I wanted to make a bigger impact on the world. I wanted to help other companies grow their businesses. And I wanted to help people express themselves more because I feel like for me, my whole life, I had this creativity that was sort of trapped inside of me. And then I slowly started to unleash it, and my world changed, overnight from a business standpoint and from a personal standpoint. But anyways, I started this business that I thought I was going to do sales consulting. That's what I thought I was going to do. That's the kind of the background I came from, was heavy B2B sales.
Hmm,
And so late 2019, I get on LinkedIn,
hmm,
and I decide that I start posting content, first text posts, picture posts, that kind of stuff. And then I say, you know what? I'm going to start unleashing some of this creativity. I'm going to start experimenting with different styles of telling stories on video, and using humor and using different characters and skits, and making people really feel it, making them smile, making them laugh a little bit, but still, have an important message that I was teaching somebody, or, giving them a tactical type, tip or strategy or whatever it might be.
hmm,
So it was creative, but then there was also a good message there. And I started doing that. And then I realized really quickly that was on Instagram and LinkedIn, but LinkedIn specifically is where I spent most of my time. And I started to realize that people were coming to me,
hmm,
potential customers were coming to me.
hmm,
And that's when I decided, okay, I need to make this pivot from, I don't really want to do the sales consulting anyways. I'd rather help companies grow their businesses and build their brand, but just in a different way, through content marketing, through social selling, through building their digital brand or their brand in general. And so that's really kind of how I fell into it.
hmm. And you are a big believer of personal branding. And I know you have a boot camp, you train the people around the world, the people who are trying to set up the business, the people who are want to increase their business. Um, how do you see the sales aspect of it changed over past 5 years? And why do you think the video content is so crucial right now?
Yeah, so it's changed dramatically. I mean, even in the past 2 to 3 years,
Mm,
especially on LinkedIn, where now it's become a content-driven platform. Where 3 years ago, it really, and beyond, it really wasn't. It was a kind of a resume place, and a place that where you would try to find a job, and it still is, but it's so much more today.
mm,
But to answer your question, I mean, I came from a heavy cold call, sending emails, that kind of background.
mm,
And I'm not knocking that. That still can work very well. But you're always kind of chasing down the customer, right? You're always like making the next call, making the next call, making the next call. You're
mm,
not really building a brand. I mean, you have certainly a reputation maybe in the marketplace with how you make those calls and how you treat your clients, referrals, that kind of stuff. But it's really not building a brand and credibility and trust at scale. And so now what we're dealing with is people, when it comes to building a personal brand and a brand for your company as well, which they go parallel with each other. A lot of times they're almost the same thing, right?
Mm,
Especially for a solopreneur or a founder, it's like your personal brand kind of is the company brand. And the
true.
company brand should be also be sort of the personal brand with maybe minor tweaks. But as the company grows, it's important to really understand that company brand because you're bringing on employees and now you got to think about them and their brands and stuff. But what happens is when you create a personal brand, people start coming to you. Like imagine if you're listening to this right now and you're like, well, I have to go out and get my customers every single time. Well, what if you didn't have to do that? What if you could put out content that
Mm,
brought value to that audience, that specific niche, and your customers started asking you, hey, I just saw your video. Hey, I just saw your post.
mm,
It's interesting what you were talking about. We're actually looking for something like that. Do you have some time to talk?
mm,
Yeah, that sounds great. That's how 80% of my clients, that's how I win them. They come to me. And
mm,
then on the flip side of that is the social selling, which has changed. That's really a new term over the last few years.
mm,
But you no longer have to cold call into a place or just email into a place cold because there's a lot more resistance around those nows. Now you can engage with people's content. You can send video messages. You can
mm.
find ways to sort of create context and build a little bit of a relationship before you start reaching out for the conversation starter.
Yeah, and I think you brought in a very important point about the resistance that nowadays we have for the cold emails and cold calls. It's about sometimes you feel the breach of the privacy, but sometimes it just goes into your mailbox, and now you have the filters that says promotions in your Gmail account, so all
Yes.
of them goes there. So to the people who are still following the cold calls and cold emails, let's jump in a little bit about cold calls. How much do you think it's effective? If you think it is effective, what are we missing? What are the people in sales world are missing when we come to cold calls to convert that into a potential prospects? Yeah.
Well, I think they're definitely still effective to a certain degree, especially in certain industries, I think more than others, right? There's certain industries where it's like it does make sense to make 50 to 100 cold calls per day mixed with a
Mm,
LinkedIn strategy, a brand strategy. Of
mm,
course, I don't think it should be one or the other. If you're going to mix in both or have a couple different avenues, I think that's actually quite smart.
mm.
But I mean, either way, and I haven't made a cold call in almost a year,
Mm,
since I left my company. But
yeah.
I can tell you this, when I was making them, it's
Mm,
similar to how you'd create content. You have to be creative. You have to grab attention in the first 3 to 5 seconds.
mm,
So you can't talk about, hey, my company, my name is this, I'm a company from this, and this, and here's what we do. And we work with clients just like you, boom, sales pitch, they're going to be done with it. So
mm,
you have to find ways to engage and really grab attention and be different in the first 3 to 5 seconds. And then you've got to, again, same with content, you've got to lead with value. Like I always when I was making my cold calls, I would not start off, but I would quickly get to a way that I could bring them value, which was maybe sharing certain perspectives that are happening in their industry that they care about. Maybe it's
mm,
doing a free evaluation. Maybe it's, whatever it looked like, I would approach the conversation as like, hey, I'd love to show you some things that I think could help you in your business, regardless of if we ever do work together or not.
mm.
And so that was kind of my entryway in. It wasn't like, let's set a meeting and see if we can work together. It was like, I'm worth the time because I'm going to give you something of value, regardless of if we work together or not.
Yeah. And that's the present trend that we are seeing in LinkedIn too, right? The value of giving.
Hmm.
And amazing content creators like you see that it's not a pitch when you put in the video content, it's about the value, and it's what tips or suggestions that you can give them this week that can help them to push forward a little bit in their business. Why do you think the giving away the tips and suggestions, giving away the knowledge of the video content is very important? What did you see as a response to it?
Because nobody cares about your company or your products or your
Mm,
services right away, right? They just don't care. Like if they
mm,
don't know you and trust you and like you and know that they want to buy from you, no one cares about what you do or what job opening you have or what
yeah.
your next product line is or the next
Mm,
launch of this. No one really cares. So
mm,
You have to build up an audience and really create a community. And you do that by providing so much value to people that they think, man, if I ever needed something like that, that would be the person I would come to, no doubt about it, because they've given me so much already and I've never even paid them a penny.
Yeah.
So I think that's how you build trust and credibility. You get people to like you and get to know you. And then it's a very clear path to when they need something. Maybe they need it right now, so they reach out or you can engage with them.
Mm,
Maybe they need what you have to offer 6 months from now. But
mm,
either way, you've positioned yourself as a likable expert by creating content consistently that's good, that brings that audience value, and you now become the go to. So you have to lead. You have to lead with value. Doesn't mean that you can't, like in my videos, a lot of times there's kind of a subtle nudge or a subtle pitch, but there's still the value or the edutainment.
mm,
There's nothing wrong, by the way, with coming out and saying, look, this is a product I'm excited to talk about. And here are the results. Here's a client success story that we've just had from Shelly, who just went through the program. She won 3 clients in her first 4 weeks. There's nothing wrong with saying that once in a while. But if it's every single post and all you're talking about is me, 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 here's my website, here's my product, here's our job openings, your brand becomes, I am selfish and I talk about me. I don't care to put value out in front of this community. And so that's a big mistake.
mm. Yeah. And if you see most of the founders who are trying to either pitch to for the funding or to pitch to a potential client, you see they always start with, oh, this is our company, we won these awards and so on. But it's much less of listening and giving the other person a chance. So the what you're trying to say is the value of listening comes a long way, and the value of giving what you know, the knowledge bites of it, comes the long way. But it's not a short-term gain; it's a long-term play. Do you agree?
From the content and the branding
Yeah.
standpoint, yes, long-term play. The short term is the social selling. So that's why I teach both, right? So I can get
Mm,
people results relatively quickly if
mm,
they follow a good social selling strategy
mm,
and use the tactics, the techniques, all that type of stuff in there. That's where you can go out and engage with people right away. It's more similar, it's more sales, right? It's more similar to picking up a phone and making a cold call, except you're doing it digitally over LinkedIn
mm,
through content and messages and things of that nature.
mm,
That's the stuff that if you want to hop on and go crazy, you can engage with 50 people's content per day
mm,
using sales navigator strategies that are in your target audience, that are decision makers for what the thing that you would want to sell them to.
mm,
And again, you're not going to go pitch them right away. You're going to
mm,
create conversations and context and add value, and then have the message which starts the conversation. And then you take it off LinkedIn on a Zoom call.
mm.
That would be the more immediate type path of quicker results. But yes, the content, the branding, building that up, it does not happen overnight. It takes some time.
Yeah, and I see that the message that you're saying just right now has been so much reflected in your latest LinkedIn post, where you're trying to say that, personal branding doesn't happen overnight, or if you just post a content and you expect that people will come knocking at the door, doesn't happen over time. I know in your boot camp, you especially focus on the DMs. Tell us a little bit about the rise of DMs and its value to the audience, especially because
Yeah.
this podcast is mainly tailored for entrepreneurs. And
Yeah.
most of the entrepreneurs are really shy, right? So they are focused more on the product and so on. So tell us a little bit about the value of DMs in the present world.
Yeah, DMs are tremendous. If you use them the right way, they can yield you a lot of results. And by results, I mean booked meetings with qualified buyers that would potentially buy from you. So, taking the conversations from LinkedIn off LinkedIn. But there's two mistakes that people make when they send video or when they send DMs on LinkedIn in general. The
Mm,
two mistakes are this. One, they go overly pitchy. They try to automate everything. It's generic messages. It's, hey, HEMA, we work in this industry, da, da, da. We've been here for 100 years, da, 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 and we serve, da, da, da. If you ever make sense that you'd want to work with somebody like us, or if you ever find yourself in a need, please give us a call. Here's my calendar link. And people tune those out so quickly. And why do they tune them out so quickly? Because we get so many of them. and they're not specific. They're not relevant most of the time, right? They're usually not crafted very well most of the time. They're
mm,
not personalized. And we
mm,
get emails, we get direct messages, we get spam stuff. We become accustomed to just putting up a wall and saying, "Oh, this looks like spam. Got to get it out of here. This looks like junk. Got to get it out of here. This looks like another pitch. Let me get it out of here." And it goes right to the trash can,
mm,
right? And so that's one mistake that people make. The second mistake, and on the other side of the spectrum,
mm,
is they go the complete opposite. And they'll be like, "Alex, I've been sending DMs, but no one's getting back to me. It's not really leading to offline conversations." And I'm like, "Well, okay, well, what are you saying?" They're
mm,
like, "Well, I'm just kind of introducing myself and saying, hey, if I can be of help to you, let me know." And I'm like, "Well, that's not going to get you anywhere either, right?" It's like walking up to a networking event and saying, "Hey, I'm Hema, I do this, if I can help you, let me know."
mm,
Probably not going to lead anywhere though. So it's like, what do you do then? And you kind of got to meet in the middle where
mm,
it's like you create context before you send the DM. So maybe they've saw your post, they've engaged with it, or you go find some content that they've created and you engage with it, start a mini conversation there. So
mm,
when you get in the DMs, you can reference something. It's not starting from cold, that awkward, like, "Hey, I'm out. You don't know me, but this, you can reference the conversation, and then you got to go to something that's a conversation starter. So kind of like what we talked about earlier, you've got to bring some value to the table, whether it's sharing your perspectives. Maybe you've got a free community that you think they'd be a great fit for, and they could get introduced to other people that maybe would be potential customers of theirs. Maybe it is getting them connected to the right people, whatever it might be, right? You just got to have a conversation starter and then take that and then use that as an opportunity to say, "Hey, since we both agree that we're talking about some meaningful stuff here, let's hop on a chat. Let's take it off LinkedIn. Let's get to know each other a little bit better, see how we can help each other further." And then boom, that becomes a Zoom call. And a lot of those Zoom calls, if you're targeting the right people, end up becoming customers. And that's the full cycle.
yeah, and I think you nailed that point. It's either that way or this way, as you said, and we have to
Exactly.
try to meet somewhere in between. And the main point people always forget is the value of having a conversation, having kind of sharing either comments in their LinkedIn post or some kind of initial conversation before you all of a sudden send this DM where people just connected with you 6 months back but never heard anything from you, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
let's jump into parenting, which is
Mhm.
another aspect of this podcast. You are a parent of two girls, and when you decided to move from your job as a consultant to something to set up a business that is for any business, if you want to set up, there is a risk. And what went through your mind when you have decided to go through and set up your own business, especially being as a parent? um, Tell us a little bit about the journey of decision making of creating your business.
In the beginning, when I was first starting off, right, and I didn't have any clients yet, or even my first couple clients, that my confidence wasn't super high, right? I had the belief that I was going to figure it out and find a way to make it happen, to turn this, this vision or this dream into a reality one day. And it actually happened a lot faster than I thought it would, believe it or not.
Mm,
But I was a little nervous about it. I wasn't sure how I was going to. I wasn't sure about the how. I just knew the why. I knew why I wanted to do it, because I wanted to create that kind of life for me and my girls, and I wanted to be able to make a bigger impact on the world. And I sort of knew the what. I was like, I'm going to help people win clients on LinkedIn, build their brands.
mm,
Digital. Like, I knew video. I knew all this stuff was going to be big, and that's right before COVID happened, and then it just became even bigger overnight.
yeah.
But I didn't necessarily know the how. What was going to be the exact product or service or offering? How much do I charge? How do I, what's the best way to go about servicing my clients? And what type of content should I continue to put out? How do I make it better? There were so many things that I wasn't sure. But I tell you this much: as I started putting in the work and doing what I needed to do to grow that business, as I started to win more clients, I put so much attention on my clients and making sure that they were on the path to success, making sure that I built my products out. And I still updating things in the boot camp like all the time, right? I just uploaded 20 brand new modules in there. So it's like I'm constantly trying to make the live sessions better, the community chat better. And so
mm,
I put a lot of attention, I think, in the right places, and got some client success stories, gained some confidence, grew the business. And then when I was getting ready to leave, at that point, I was so confident that I was going to make it work because I just had the mentality, Hema, where I was like, either I make this work or I
mm,
die.
mm.
Like that was my mindset.
Yeah.
And I think when you have that mindset, then when there is no plan B,
Mm,
plan A becomes it. And I really, as cliche as it sounds, I know it's kind of like, oh, everyone says like, believe it and achieve it,
mm,
but I really believe if you wake up every day and you say, I am going to do this, there's nothing that's going to stop me. I'm talented enough. I'll work hard enough. Like
mm,
I have whatever it takes. I don't know everything. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to fail. But
mm,
my sheer determination and the fact that I want this really, really bad, and
mm.
the fact that I'm willing to put in the work, that's going to get me to where I want to go. And
Yes.
it did. And now I'm here and I'm like, all right, where's the next place now? And again, I have to retrain my head again to be like,
Right.
all right, dude, you got this. Go for it. Remember just how you got to here, same mentality, even though it's the next ledge now, the
Mm,
same thing. You can do it. You can do it. Determination, put in the work. Never say that you're not going to be able to do it. There is no plan B. You're making this happen because you want it. It's important to you, your family, everyone. And now
mm.
you got to go make it happen.
Yeah. How about the parenthood? What did you see in terms of transformation, especially your time spending with the girls
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
as I see, parenthood and entrepreneurship both are two different hardships. And when there is a parent who are going to the entrepreneurship, it's like sailing on two boats at the same time.
Hmm.
So, how did you manage to ensure that you spend time with your girls and there is a balance?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a balance. I think it's an art of juggling both parenthood and entrepreneurship. What challenges that you had, and how did you figure it out to balance those two hardships?
Yeah, in the beginning it was tough because COVID had just happened, and a lot of times the daycare was closed, and so they were here with me, and
Mm,
I was trying to work and do meetings and stuff, and they would be here trying. And my 7-year old who was in kindergarten at the time was doing her homework and her Zoom calls and her class, and my 4-year old was running around asking for a snack and stuff, and it was kind of wild, right? I mean, we had some good memories, but it was just wild. And then once things kind of got back to somewhat normal and they went back to school and daycares opened up and things of that nature, my life now, yeah, me and my ex are their mom are separated, so I see my kids 50% of the time and she sees them the other 50% of the time.
mm,
But I tell you what, I have more now being an entrepreneur. I have more and better quality time with them than
mm,
I ever have before because I leave like today at 3 o'clock. I'll go leave to pick them up. I
mm,
mean, at my old job when I was working in corporate America, I wouldn't leave the office till 5:30, 6 o'clock. So I
mm,
wouldn't see them till 6:30 some nights, and then they're going to bed at 7:30. So it was like I didn't have a lot of time with them. And then the weekends I did, of course.
mm,
But I feel like, this has taught me so much from a personal standpoint and to be present with the people that I'm with.
mm.
Now I'll say this, like, is it perfect? And do I mess up and do I bleed things over? Of course, am I on my phone sometimes answering an email? My daughter's asking me something. And I'm like, dang it, I know I shouldn't be doing this right now. I got to put away the phone. Yes. Do sometimes I know I have to do something in the business, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go pick up my daughters instead early.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, so I think, there's a lot of talk about work-life balance right now, work-life harmony or work-life integration. And it's really interesting. I was just talking about this today with a friend.
Mm,
I don't understand why we can't say the word balance anymore.
mm,
It's almost like that phrase has become like, don't say balance. It's all bleeds together. It's like,
mm.
why does it have to be that way just because
Yeah.
someone said it was? Like, why can't we have I want a balanced life to a certain degree. Does it bleed together? Yeah, it's our lives. That's like it just does, right? It's not
Right.
perfect,
Right.
but balance in the sense of that, like, I'd love to, in a perfect world, when I pick up my kids, I can be with them and present with them until they go to bed, and then if I want to work again after that, I can.
Right.
When I'm with them on the weekends, I'd like to do a little work in the morning with my coffee as they play or watch a movie, and
Mm,
then I'm going to spend the entire day with them
yeah.
until they go to bed. I'm not going to be working every hour. So
Mm,
to me, that is the balance. I mean, you can
yeah.
call it whatever you want to call it. I don't know why we got to get all crazy with the names and stuff.
Yeah.
It just means I want awesome relationships. I want an awesome business, and I want
Mm,
to be fulfilled and have happiness and have love in my life and
mm,
take care of people around me.
mm.
And again, is that perfect? No. Is that, does it bleed together? Yeah, of course, it's life, right? But I have a life. Like
Yeah.
my life is my life. My life is not my work.
Mm,
My work is not my life.
yeah.
My life is here. I have many components of that life. One component is my daughters, my family, my
Mm,
friends,
mm,
my work, right? And certain ones are more or take the priority. If my
mm,
daughter's daycare called me, said they need me here stat,
mm.
I drop everything I'm doing in my business to go be with them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If and so again, there's priorities, and I think we make time for
I think
certain things,
you
but that's it.
captured a very good point about the components of life and the balance and the way we define things. Again, it's the perspective of different people, how they look at. But the important point most of them don't understand is for a person to reach at a certain point of their business where they can hold back whatever they want to, or where they can tailor their life in the way they want. It takes a lot of hard work and dedication to reach a certain point, and not most of the people understand it. It's not overnight success. It's a
Mm-mm.
continuous improvement, adaptability, agility,
Yeah.
transforming yourself, hours of work
So
to reach to a certain stage. And it's very important for people to understand that it's not something that happens overnight.
exactly, and to that point, I mean, I went 6 months with only having one day off, one full day off when I was
Mm,
originally building my business and making the move. I
mm,
mean, and when I say 6 months, I mean I was spending time with my daughters when I saw them or the weekends, but I was
mm,
still finding time in that day, every single day, to do some type of work, whether it was
mm,
in the morning or whether it was when they went to bed and I worked for another 3 or 4 hours.
mm,
I worked every single day. And it was weird when I had the day off because I was like,
mm.
what do I even do with myself? I was kind of sad. It was really weird. Now I know, like, I understand now how to spend time without being in the business or with my kids. I found that kind of that balance, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, it's a lot of sacrifices. I mean, I worked every single night, every single weekend. I didn't have a much of a personal life for 6 to 8 months,
yeah.
but I was okay. I was okay doing that because one, I loved the business so much and I love the process of building this up.
Mm,
And then two, I was like, hey, I'm okay with making the next 8 months a little bit hard and really dived into the business and my
mm,
kids to then have the next 40 years to be able to like live a kind of life that I want to and be on a good trajectory. So you got to look at the sacrifices. I mean, most people, if they just sacrificed, and I say sacrifice, but I mean just really got to work and put their head down for 6 to 12 months, it would change the next 30 years of their life.
yeah,
But they don't want to give up,
right.
certain things throughout the week or weekend or brunches or Netflix every night from 5 to 10 p.m., and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's definitely sacrifices that come with it.
Yeah. Let's wrap up this podcast with what you are really good at is giving the suggestions, and especially around video content. So let's split this into three buckets. Your message based on your experience and expertise for startups, especially around video content, and as you said, what you cover in bootcamp. What is your message, or what are your suggestions? Three suggestions for startups.
So first and foremost, I would spend time thinking about the brand of that company. I don't think enough people spend time there. They think they have a brand because they've got the logo and the website and maybe a tagline. But do they really have a brand? And ideally, that brand would be mission driven. When you can create a mission driven brand and a movement, people feel inspired to be a part of it. Customers want to buy because they feel like you stand for something more than just a product or a service. You're changing the world, you're changing the industry,
Yeah.
you're impacting people in a positive way.
Mm,
So I always focused a lot of time on that. Mine was unleash the creative. I want to help millions of people, if not billions of people, unleash their inner creative, their inner potential. And the brand is really built around that. Every decision you make,
mm,
if you have a true brand, it filters through that brand filter.
mm,
So that's number one. Number two is to go alongside with that, you got to really understand your target audience. So I think a lot of people put out content without realizing who is my customer and what do they care about and what language do they use and what are their concerns? What do they want to hear about from me that would stop them in the news feed?
mm,
And so diving deep and really getting clear on that, doing a little bit of market research and
mm,
talking to your clients, diving deep with them is a great way to start as well. That kind of fuses with the brand. That goes hand in hand with the brand. And then the third thing I would say is that you have to, you can't be boring. You have to, infuse some personality. You have to infuse, um, I love infusing edutainment. I love infusing live role plays, anything, unique backdrops. We are at the war of attention. I mean, if you can't, you can have the greatest product and service on planet Earth, but if you cannot get the attention
Mm,
of the audience that you need attention from, it is going to fall on deaf ears. It does not matter. It's not necessarily the best product that wins. It's not necessarily the best service that wins. Unfortunately,
mm,
it's just, and it's not even unfortunately, it's just the way of the world. It's just how life works. It's
yeah,
who can grab the attention first. Now, if the product or service is not good beyond that,
mm,
then they're not going to come back, and that's going to be a tarnished brand. And so you
mm,
do have to have both, of course,
mm,
but grabbing attention and learning how to, the art and sort of science of creating content, people need to understand that skill, or at minimum have people on their team that understand it. And it's something worth investing in because it is a skill that you're going to need to know for the rest of our lives.
yeah. Your suggestion for the people who have got the clients now, but they want to be in, for example, in Fortune 500, or they want to increase their revenue threefold or fourfold, how does the content marketing change for a startup when
Yeah.
they're going from having 20 or 30 companies or the clients to a complete three or fourfold $1 million business? How would they need to transform their content when they're moving or they want to transform into that stage?
Well, I mean, there's a ton of different answers to this, but I mean, if are we assuming the audience is staying the same, the
Yeah,
potential,
yeah.
or is the customer different now?
The customer would be the customer would be the same, or
Okay.
maybe it would end up being bigger clients, but the customer and the target audience are the same. Either they
Yeah.
need to increase their target audience or they need to get a bigger blue chip clients. Yeah,
Right, right. So the reason I ask that is because depending on the customer, if you're targeting a small to mid-sized company versus a Fortune 500 company
right.
or a higher, bigger fish type client, the
Yes,
messaging could be a little bit different, right? What they
yes,
care about as a massive company versus what a small 10-person company cares about is something different, right?
yes.
But beyond that, if assuming the audience is the same and the content's working, then I would keep putting out more of that content. But I would find ways now, if you're trying to grow and you've got the funding,
Mm,
how can you be in more channels where those customers are? How can you maybe start running some ads now to start,
mm,
the paid sponsored ads now to get in front of and specifically target certain companies and like
mm,
get really granular with it if you've got the funding for that. But in terms of the messaging and the content, it should keep evolving and getting better, but it shouldn't change that much if it's working and the target audience is staying the same.
Last one, um, if a startup or a company or a service, they want to aim for a bigger organization as a client, how does the content change now from where you're targeting smaller companies to when you're targeting a big organization? What they have to change in terms of the content at that point?
So it totally, so this would go back to the market research and really studying the client and understanding what does that big company care about that is top of mind for them that maybe is a little bit different than what that small company cares about. So
Mm,
your messaging and the way you write your post, the language that you use, the
mm,
types of videos that you use are going to change. Here's the other thing that I would say too, aside from ads and everything else, if you're targeting really big companies, why not do a video and add maybe some entertainment element or a certain element to it that targets that specific company
mm,
for that video, right? Like maybe you call them out and you tag some of the people that work with them. Maybe you've set this up because you've engaged with a lot of the members that work for that specific division on LinkedIn and you've had many conversations, no sales pitches, no nothing like that. You've just engaged with their engineers, their directors, or whoever else, so you know them now, and then when you finally build those relationships, because this is a bigger customer, it's worth it to put in this kind of work.
mm,
Then you say, hey, to my connections, you individually message them and say, hey, I'm creating a video for you guys, your company. I'd love to work with you guys. You guys have been awesome to chat with here on LinkedIn. Do you mind if I tag you in this video? Man,
mm,
my hope is that your company sees this and gets value from it, and then maybe I can set up a meeting because of it. And that stuff is starting to happen. where
Right.
salespeople are getting creative with their video content, and
Hmm.
they're putting out a piece of content that's targeted towards that company. And then
Hmm.
once you got that video, now you can send it as a video email. Now you can put it in a newsletter. You can repurpose that video, a ton of different ways in ads later on, targeting that company again and their
Hmm.
specific employees. So you do it, the higher up you get, the more tactical that you have to be, and the more specific you have to be.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it again. The amount of value in research and tailoring to the target audience that you need
Hmm.
to do is something that most of the people have mentioned that they have challenge with, especially for startups who want to
Yep.
grow their business and so on. And thank you, Alex, for coming to the podcast and
Sure.
sharing with us both your journeys into two different hardships of parenthood and entrepreneurship. And to the people, to wrap up, Alex is again the founder of Impax, and he strongly believes in the mission of unleashing the creativity. And he is considered as the top voice influencer and the video content creator in LinkedIn. And he also provide the bootcamp services for a lot of companies who are struggling of creating or making a proper meaningful relationships with their potential clients. Thanks a lot, Alex. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you, Hema. You too.